Somewhere, something incredible is waiting to be known. Everything you know about space is wrong. Infinite space, stars as flaming spheres of superheated plasma, movement through space as a balance of scientific forces, thrust providing acceleration and maneuverability. Scientific fact backing up natural phenomena. Life on other planets built along blocks of carbon or silicon elements. Forget all that. It's wrong. The Void Cruiser glides through the astral sea under a canopy of silver stillness and drifting debris. On the command deck, the Kithrak stands beside the helm with his hands clasped behind his back, watching every breath her captain takes, every micro-adjustment of sail and rudder thought, every flicker of hesitation that might betray a surprise attack from their hated enemy. He spoke in a cool, harsh demeanor, naming him only as Bart to captain, ordering the engraved disc brought forward, ordering its Tyazu rings traced in sequence to activate its history. He answers in lowered tones, Venisk to his authority, because every course is sworn beneath Vlakith, Chamar, Zala Vlakith, and the destruction of the Gate remain the only acceptable end from the eons of torment. He sets 2 fingers to the disc and opens the psionic mind link. As his mind and the disc connect, the engravings bloom into hovering readings, current vectors, dead drift zones, god carcass shadows, lanes of nautiloid paths, ports in secret locations within the astral that answered only to the word of Kithraki. As the link fully took shape, it described the astral ships that bear the title of Void Cruiser and the purpose of their designs. Those fitted for swift pursuit and boarding in the astral. Those built with the means to pierce onward into other planes. Those outfitted with spell-jamming helms so the same hull can cut from astral passage into wild space and endure the distances between prime worlds. Chakal Gaik, Vlakith, Mazathak. He then presented the disc to his underling, Galathk, Skakek, Kagith, Shabeleth. Read underling, Mother Gith compels you to listen. You can get out of the atmosphere on the back of a rock, fly between the planets through a breathable ocean of air, sail between the crystal spheres that surround the inhabited worlds on a river of magical energy, encounter roving mind flayers and beholders. The stars are living things in some areas, great bowls of fire in others, and pinpoints of light painted inside a sphere in others. Many of the details about fantasy space can be different from universe to universe and from world to world. All fantasy space, however, shares certain universal basic properties and capabilities. This allows ships to fly between the planets and to voyage between the crystal spheres. Listen close, for the nature of wild space and the many facets and intricacies of travel are lost upon many of a spacefarer. Space can be divided into 2 types, wild space and the phlogiston. Wild space is what comes to mind when we talk of space. It is the vast emptiness that lies between the planets and the stars. All space inside a crystal shell is wild space. It is mostly vacuum. More correctly, most regions of wild space are vacuum. But the cosmos is a big place, and there are exceptions to almost every rule, as shall be shown later. Wild space is not truly a void, however, even though it is often referred to that way. The simple fact that there is space rules out its being a true void. The phlogiston is a turbulent, unstable, multicolored, fluorescent gas or gas-like medium, which fills the regions between the crystal spheres. Very little is known for certain about the phlogiston, or this region. Every planetary system known is encased within a crystal sphere. Essentially, the crystal sphere keeps the wild space in and the phlogiston out. This, of course, is a tremendous simplification, but it is easy to grasp. Like the phlogiston, crystal spheres are a great mystery. Their origins and substance are unknown. Within wild space are the celestial bodies, planets, suns, moons, asteroids, and a host of other items collectively lumped together under the heading planetoids. Most celestial bodies have an atmosphere of some sort, although it is dangerous to assume that this is an inviolable rule. The celestial body that is most familiar to many current planar scribes is their home planet, be it Kryn, Earth, Tauril, or any one of hundreds of others that populate the universe. Celestial bodies extend upward in size to that of the Sun, and downward to the size of asteroids and planetoids. The tremendous variety that is possible and proven in celestial bodies mandates that the only accurate definition for the term is any significantly large conglomeration of matter that is wheeling about in wild space. In general, however, a celestial body is a planetary mass. Most have a regenerating atmosphere. Celestial bodies can have any shape, though the most common is spherical. Still, there are flat worlds, elliptical worlds, cubic worlds, amorphous worlds, ring-shaped worlds, hollow worlds. Astronomers from Kalimshan have even theorized the existence of a Mobius world. Celestial bodies usually, but not always, have an atmosphere which is usually, but not always, breathable. The depth or thickness of the atmosphere is directly related to the size of the body. The larger the body, the deeper the atmosphere. Voyagers may encounter large worlds without atmospheres, small worlds with thick atmospheres, and otherwise habitable worlds with poisonous atmospheres. Some celestial bodies are aflame, fueled either by internal reactions or by significant access to the elemental plane of fire. Such bodies are called suns and provide most of the heat and warmth for the celestial bodies within any particular crystal shell. All the celestial bodies within a crystal shell float in an airless void called wild space. Conventional, meaning those that take place on the prime material plane. Interplanetary journeys around a solar system take place within wild space. It is the first obstacle that must be conquered by would-be space travelers. As an adventurer moves higher, whether climbing a mountain or on the back of a rock, the atmosphere becomes thinner and thinner until at last it becomes vacuum. The climber can still breathe, however, because as he moves upward, an envelope of air clings to him. When he reaches the point where the planet's air is no longer breathable, he is breathing his own air, held near him by his body's own gravity. This air envelope attaches to everything that passes through the atmosphere and allows normal survival in wild space, at least for a short time. The disadvantage to such an envelope is its small size. The envelope of breathable air that attaches to any body has an all-around depth equal to the cross-sectional diameter of that body. Example: a spherical beholder 5 feet across has an air envelope 15 feet in diameter. Similarly, a block of wood, which is 1 foot by 2 feet by 3 feet, is surrounded by a more or less rectangular envelope of air, which is 3 feet by 6 feet by 9 feet. A creature will exhaust the air in its personal envelope within a short time frame. Since this is barely enough time to get anywhere, most crossing of wild space is done with larger vessels, which have correspondingly larger atmospheres. The amount of air which a vessel can bring along limits the minimum size of most space-going ships to no less than 100 feet in length. This measurement is called the keel. The cost of moving this amount of mass limits the upper size of the ship. The reason everything drags its own atmosphere around through space is gravity. This is also the reason why people can stand on a space-sailing ship without falling off its deck, and can stand on a spherical planet without falling off the bottom side. Every body in space has its own gravity. Gravity is an accommodating force in that its direction seems to be that which is most convenient. In an object the size of a planet, gravity is directed toward a point at the center of the planet, so that people can stand anywhere on the surface and dropped objects fall perpendicular to the surface. In smaller objects, like spacecraft, gravity is not a central point, but rather a plane which cuts horizontally through the object. Significantly, This gravity plane is two-directional. It attracts from both top and bottom. A sailor can actually stand on the bottom of the ship's hull and move around as easily as if he was walking on deck. In this case, down is actually up, back toward the plane of gravity that cuts through the ship. One of the stranger side effects of all this is that an object falling off the side of a spelljammer can oscillate back and forth across the plane of gravity, falling first in one direction until it crosses the plane, then reversing direction and falling back across the plane again, and so on until something causes it to stop. To a person standing on the deck, the object appears to fall down, then up, then down, then up. This trick is commonly used to amuse passengers new to space travel. More than one groundling has gotten in trouble for standing at the ship's rail and tossing an endless stream of apples overboard just to watch them bob. Example: a Viking longboat cruising through the fjords is suddenly thrown from its home into wild space. Its crew can still stand normally on its deck. Down for them is toward the bottom of the boat. Similarly, an individual could stand on the bottom of the longship and find that down for him was back toward the top of the boat. Someone who jumps off the deck of the boat would fall downward and pass through the boat's plane of gravity, whereupon the direction of gravity would reverse for him and pull him back toward the underside of the hull. A carefully thrown object can actually go into orbit around the ship. Such orbits do not last long. The object quickly collides with the ship's rigging or oars, or slows down in the air envelope and crashes into the ship. One of the favorite pranks of experienced spell sailors is to toss an apple or similar light object off one side of a ship in such a way that it curves around and strikes someone standing at the other rail. Ships travel through wild space by means of the helm, a magical device which converts mystical energy into motive force, the push that moves the Spelljammer. This allows rapid movement from planet to planet. Some of the specifics vary from race to race. In general, however, most ships are equipped with a magical device known as a spelljamming helm. A mage or priest sits at the helm and acts as a living engine, providing the magical power to move the ship through wild space and to perform some basic maneuvering as well. Any magic can move a ship through wild space. The more powerful the magic, the faster and further the ship can move. The arrangement of celestial bodies in wild space varies from sphere to sphere. Many are stellar-centric. That is, the central body is a sun, and all the other bodies revolve around it. There are also geocentric systems where a planet is the center of the system, and the sun and other planets revolve around it. Earth is such a system. There are even systems where the planets do not move at all, where there's only one planet and no sun, and some where the planets move randomly and erratically. Many voyagers roam randomly through wild space, looking for the remains of lost civilizations, ghost ships, treasure rocks, and other objects that are not normally found closer to civilization. There are also space pirates and their bases floating off the beaten tracks, usually near dead worlds, which would not otherwise attract attention. Finally, there are a surprising number of monsters living in wild space, surviving by being so large that they carry a significant air supply with them wherever they go, such as space dragons, by retaining air within their bodies, gasfish, or by not needing to breathe at all, the neogi. All wild space is bounded by crystal shells or crystal spheres. Inside the crystal sphere is the vacuum of wild space, the planets, and stars. Outside the crystal sphere is the rainbow ocean of phlogiston and more crystal spheres. The size of a crystal sphere is determined by the size of the planetary system inside. Usually, a sphere has a radius at least twice as big as the orbital radius of the outermost celestial body in the system. For example, the distance from the shell to the outermost body of the system is the same as the distance from that outermost body to the center point of the system. Because of their great size, The outside of a crystal sphere appears perfectly flat. The curvature is so gradual that it is completely undetectable to anyone who is close enough to see the crystal sphere through the obscuring phlogiston. The spheres consist of an unbreakable, dark, ceramic material of unknown origin. Some legends state, and various theologians agree, that the smooth surface shells were created and positioned by the gods themselves to protect their worlds from the ravages of the phlogiston, which is held to be the prime matter of the universe. Less charitable philosophers maintain that such shells were placed by an even higher authority to keep gods and men in and confine their activities. Whatever their origin, the crystal shells are uniform throughout space. All appear as great, dark, featureless spheres of unidentifiable matter. The crystal spheres are definitely solid. They have no gravity along either their interior or exterior sides, an exception to the rule that all large objects have gravity. No magic has been found that can damage or alter the surface of a shell, except for those spells which cause portals to open. Even this, however, is believed to be nothing more than an artificial triggering of a natural phenomenon, since portals also occur naturally and seemingly at random. They are apparently immune to the effects of wishes and even the wills of the outer planar powers, though this does not rule out the possibility that the outer planar powers created them. Perhaps they were wise enough to prevent even their own tampering. The crystal shell is an impassable barrier to space voyagers, unless they are properly prepared or very fortunate. 5 methods are known for getting from one side of a crystal sphere to another. It can be bypassed entirely with a teleport or dimension door spell. The traveler blinks from one side of the shell to the other without physically crossing the shell. Only a magical item or magical spell can effect such a transfer. A phase door spell or magical device which duplicates that spell allows a ship or a portion of the shell to become immaterial so the ship can pass through. Naturally occurring portals pierce the shell in various locations at random and unpredictable intervals. Looking for such a portal can be a time-consuming task. In some systems, stars are located around the fringes. Occasionally, such stars are themselves portals to other locations, which can be accessed by diving into the heart of the star. Such portals are very rare. Voyagers definitely should check local listings before incinerating themselves in an unknown situation. The legendary Spelljammer and creatures such as space dragons seem to have an innate ability to open portals to the phlogiston. These portals close slowly over a long period, so other ships can sometimes pass through them. From outside a sphere, these portals are easily visible. Note that portals, as discussed here, are merely simple doors, allowing passage from one side of a crystal shell to the other. They are not gates, and they do not allow transit between dimensions. Magic that relies on other planes or other dimensions is notoriously unreliable when cast in close proximity to a crystal shell. Outside and between the crystal spheres is a turbulent rainbow ocean of flammable ether called the phlogiston. The phlogiston is a multicolored sea upon which float the various systems within their crystal shells. The term phlogiston is applied equally to both the multicolored medium and to the entire region surrounding the crystal spheres. Phlogiston has varying thicknesses in space and forms dense rivers between planet-sized objects, such as the spheres themselves. Voyagers moving along these paths of concentrated phlogiston discover that the greater the density of the flow, the faster a ship can move. A ship can speed up and slow down by penetrating deeper into or raising itself out of these phlogiston rivers. Stellar distances can be covered quickly in such areas. Further, the speed of the ship is at least partially dependent on the surface area it presents to the flow. So, many ships carry sails to increase their speed in interstellar oceans. Gravity works in phlogiston the same way it does in wild space. Down is directed toward the major axis of the ship. Phlogiston is none of the recognized 4 elemental matters. It is neither air nor earth, fire nor water. it cannot be reproduced or brought into a system of a crystal sphere. If an attempt is made, whether by physical or magical contamination, the phlogiston inexplicably dissipates, leaving no trace. Phlogiston simply cannot exist within wild space or on the surface of a planet. Finally, phlogiston is dangerously flammable, much like oil-soaked cotton, which poses its own problems. Any flame exposed to phlogiston causes the surrounding area, including the phlogiston-laden air envelope of the ship, to burst into flame. This flame expands immediately to 3 times its normal diameter. For this reason, fireballs, bombs, arquebuses, and any other weapons which rely on a spark or flame are not used in the phlogiston. Because of the nature of phlogiston, all flaming light sources are extinguished by the crew before entering the flow. Phlogiston is radiant, so no other lights are needed on the exposed decks. Below decks, or in rare and haunted, dark regions of space, cold, natural lights, moths or fireflies, fluorescent moss, or magical lights are used for illumination. Voyagers can move along the rivers of phlogiston at random or according to a planned course. Many of these rivers flow in both directions between 2 crystal shells. In some cases, a river flows in one direction only, forcing the voyager to follow a different course when returning home. The crystal spheres bob in the phlogiston like corks in an ocean, mind-boggling, enormous corks, but they do bob. As a result, over time, the spheres actually shift their positions relative to each other. This almost never changes the courses of the rivers, however, so navigation is possible. But just because a ship passed certain landmarks on its way from A to B does not mean the ship will pass those same landmarks on its way back to A from B. Fortunately, when crystal shells drift too close, the phlogiston between them thickens to the point where the massive spheres are prevented apart, and a collision is prevented. The spheres containing Toril, Earth, and Kryn form a stable triangle. Travel is possible in both directions between Toril and Earth, and between Earth and Kryn. Toril and Kryn are not connected by a river, however, so while a direct trip from one to the other is feasible, it is impossibly slow. From Toril, Kryn can be reached quicker by passing through Earth than by taking a straight-line path. We praised Pella when we realized the shapes above us were not dragons. We cursed him when we saw they were the airships of the Githyanki. The Kithrak read it, then laughed once, and the others followed with short, sharp chuckles, while the captain kept his eyes on the course through the astral. He opened the Tyazu disc while the holograms rose, focused upon spell-jamming ships to cut through the difficulties of the astral and wild space. Void cruisers for astral travel and boarding, cutters for pursuit tasks, war hulls for commanding troops and helmed craft, built to cross into wild space and run realm space lanes. Memorize the silhouettes upon the Tyazu, he stated. Remember you of power and grand naming. If an Istik sees dragons, you show them a Githyanki ship above so they fear our kind. For we are Mlagir, liberators of our people. Zai, 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 for Mother Gith and hold your Nirtla high, for our people are the vengeance of the Gath and the Gaik, the Nautiloid and the Mindflayer parasites. The newest and largest ship in the Mindflayer fleets, the Dreadnought represents the full exploitation of the pool helm to produce ships above 50 tons, but still beneath the apparent 100-ton maximum. The Dreadnought looks like a great snail shell laid on its side, resting on 2 hulls. The hulls are similar to the forward halves of the standard Nautiloid, the workhorse of the Illithid fleets. One of the hulls is known as the command hull and contains the officers' quarters, while the other is the battle hull and is used for ramming. Both hulls mount catapults for assaults. The interior of the shell is a single great vault, similar to the interior of the Nautiloids. Walkways around the perimeter provide access to the ballista stations and the various officers' posts. The vault is lit with red hues and dominated by the glowing pool that provides the motive force for spelljamming. The captain's post is on a catwalk over the pool. One mind flayer is deadly, 25 of them, the maximum number to be found on a dreadnought, are a disaster waiting to happen. Early reports about the abilities of the pool helms seem to have been inflated, and the pools are as limited as the other forms of standard spelljamming drives. They are held to the 100-ton limit. The size restraint on crew for the Mind Flayers seems to be a doctrinal restriction by the race, rather than any physical requirement. On most Illithid ships, advancement is by assassination, and captains prefer to place their best, brightest, and most dangerous officers in positions of authority and danger, in the hopes that they will be either kept busy or killed before the officers get the idea of killing the captain. On a dreadnought, the leaders consist of the captain and 4 staff officers. Titles run along the lines of maintenance, weapons, navigation, and morale, but in duties all are interchangeable. Each staff officer maintains his own group of followers among the other Mind Flayers of the ship. Wise captains play one side off another to retain control, as no officer would place the ship in danger just to advance his own career. At least, not if he could get caught doing it. The remainder of the crew consists of slaves. The bulk of the slaves are humans, gnomes, and other races captured from enemy ships and impressed into service. In addition, each officer and the captain maintains a personal slave who is not bound by shackles, though they may be charmed or otherwise ensorcelled to serve the Illithid loyally. The personal servants are treated as loyal pets and are counted on to pass on any information they get from other slaves or the ship's political climate, in addition to performing all odd jobs for their masters. These servants are treated better than the standard Illithid slave, but run the risk of having their brains sucked out if their master has a bad day. The dreadnoughts have only appeared within the last year and are still relatively rare. They usually appear in large-scale Mind Flayer activity, in particular in cases where the Mind Flayers wish to drive a particular point home. Usually, in such diplomatic missions, the dreadnoughts are escorted by 2 to 4 nautiloids. Lone dreadnoughts are now being used as exploration craft, particularly in areas known to have active spelljamming races. A huge ship reminiscent of the earthly cephalopod of the same name. The octopus moves through the void in a manner similar to the sea creatures it bullies, and first, trailing its armed tentacles. Originally designed as a convoy protection during the Unhuman Wars, its weapon layout earned it the nickname Tail Gunner. The octopus was originally designed for a human crew, supplemented by Mind Flayers as heavy assistance in boarding actions. The captain and helmsman are located within the protected head of the octopus. 4 of the 8 arms of the octopus have some limited movement, controlled by great winches within the main body. These winches are used to pull the weapons into position. As a result, the ship can fire in all directions equally well. The octopus is a relic of another time and place. It appeared at the height of the Unhuman Wars during an unlikely alliance between neutral humans and Mind Flayers. The resulting hybrid has many Illithid characteristics, but was piloted by human wizards and used primarily to guard caravans and convoys from goblin depredations. With the destruction of the gibbons, the need for large groups of ships, travelling convoy style, diminished. The human Illithid alliance broke up, and the ships were retired, their equipment scavenged for other, more manoeuvrable ships. Until recently, that is. An enterprising Illithid has reportedly discovered a forgotten depot with several octopus ships and has been refitting and reselling them to anyone who can afford them, no questions asked. The depot was likely a secret fleet base or an abandoned Illithid outpost, which collapsed because of Mind Flayer infighting. The refitting consists of repainting and changing enough details of work so that the original owners do not come looking for the new sales. The octopuses are being used in a variety of ways. As adventurers' crafts, they avoid the open deck problem of the hammer ships, and as a pirate vessel. Pirates are beginning to take the edge in number of ships in use, so that strange octopus ships are best approached cautiously. The Nautiloid is the standard ship of the line of the various spacefaring Illithid nations and reflects the nature of the race. Its coiled shell provides the comfort of enclosed spaces while protecting the mind flayers from the irritating rays of the sun. A standard mind flayer crew numbers 10 Illithids, plus 2 to 5 additional Illithids, depending upon the number of series helms in use. The ship's danger scale of a Nautiloid is determined by the number of such helms in use. A mind flayer ship has a single captain and first officer, the remainder of the group being crew. If additional crewmen are on board, they are usually slaves of the mind flayers. The Illithids prefer to use expendable slaves to man the catapults, while the mind flayers remain in the relative comfort of the interior. Humans are the slaves of choice, but there are sometimes other races: gnomes, halflings, elves, and dwarves. The ship's captain is always at the controls, overseeing the ship's general welfare and giving orders to the helmsman. The first officer is usually stationed on the upper deck, directing the main catapult. As this is the site of most attacks against the ship, the first officer's position is not envied, and any first officer is usually conspiring to attain the relative safety of captaincy. Still, no position is completely safe on a mind flayer ship. If the captain is incapacitated, the crew eats him, and the first officer is promoted. Assassination is a common form of Illithid advancement. A Nautiloid pirate will have 12 to 15 mind flayers, with the remainder of the crew, up to 35, slaves and boarders. Since slaves often serve as rations on long voyages, there is a high attrition rate among them, and the survivors are little more than shells of their former selves. A Nautiloid pirate is always looking to resupply its stock, plus take anything that is not nailed down from other ships. Ramming tactics are the first order of business, followed by close combat, where the flayers use their mental powers on the creatures at close range. Often, a Nautiloid pirate will masquerade as a trader to close with a target, then ram unsuspecting ships. As the workhorse of the Illithid fleet, the Nautiloid is often pressed into service as a trade ship. Such ships will have only 2 to 5 mind flayers to man the helm, plus a captain and first officer, and 3 slaves to man the catapult. These ships rely on speed to make their escape from enemy ships. Nautiloids are used in picket duty in various hotspots, and as fast spy ships that can report back to the mind flayer fleet. A long-time standard ship, the Nautiloid is being replaced slowly by larger ships using the pool throne. The majority of Nautiloids use a series helm that links multiple mind flayers into a magical chain. This chain provides the ship's spelljamming power. A new form of propulsion being brought online in the Illithid fleet is the pool helm, in which a batch of immature mind flayer tadpoles is harnessed and used to power the ship. Only 10% of the mind flayer ships have this new power type, believed to have been invented by the arcane experts of long-forgotten Illithids, focusing on the innate power of psionics. The tyrant ships are the most diverse class of ships in fantasy space. They look like walnut shells, huge eyeballs, shells carried by squid-like tentacles, even huge beholders. The individuality of the tyrant ship reflects the individual nature of the beholder races. While all beholders share the same basic form and abilities, the creature's genetic lines are plastic, such that small regional differences result in radically different-looking creatures. The trouble is that all beholders have their own ideal as far as perfection, and they consider all other species of their race mutants, suitable only for elimination from the gene pool. Each tyrant ship reflects the individuality and racial paranoia of its master. Each ship also is a reflection of its owner's subspecies, but all share the same basic structure, a concave shell indented with small pockets. These pockets are the resting place of the beholders, tentacles down. At the center of the bowl usually rests the Eye Mother, surrounded by a number of orbi. Beholder ships usually lack weapons, but make up for it with one of the most terrifying weapons in space, the combined force of a large number of beholders in a single place. A beholder circuit of common beholder, orbus, and a queen can provide a beam of magical energy about 400 yards and up to 100 yards across at the base. The galleon is the best ocean-going craft that groundling nations can bring into space. It is nothing more than a sailing ship with the Spelljammer helm, purchased or salvaged from some rock attached. Of the peoples of the known worlds, only the nation of Shou Lung on Toril sponsors a realistic approach to space travel. Other nations dabble though, and the most thought of them use the galleon as their vessel of choice. Bulky and slow, it still gets the job done, and its large cargo hold carries a great deal of spoils from other lands. The squid ship, officially the cephalopod-class brig, is known throughout space by its more common name. Many scholars believe that the original design for the squid ship was created by revolting prisoners of an Illithid slave world who fused together elements of sea ships and the standard nautiloid designs. Some sages point to the existence of such ships in spheres where the Mind Flayer is either extinct or unknown as proof against this theory, but the tale remains. The straight lines and good maneuverability of the squid ship make it one of the most popular vessels of its size. It is usually used for trading, exploration, and privateering. The squid ship's simple design allows a relatively small crew to handle the rigging and maneuvering. The captain is usually found on the aft deck, where he gets a good view of most of the ship. The Spelljammer helm is usually located directly beneath the captain's station, with communications to the helm via speaking tube. Human ships typically have an obvious captain's bridge, while the helm remains hidden. The damage to morale from the loss of a captain in combat is nothing in comparison to that of the ship's Spelljammer helm. Typical positions on board a squid ship include captain, first officer, helmsman, spelljammer, and navigator. A weapon master is often needed if the ship carries more than one large weapon. The weapon master is responsible for the maintenance of the weapons, as well as aiming the weapons during battle. The bulk of squid ships are free traders, privately owned vessels that drift from planet to planet, usually speculating in rare items such as gems, magic, and illegal goods. A trader usually has a core crew of 12, though captains often hire additional men if their trade is passing through an active section of space. Active, in this instance, specifically refers to sections of space where there are hostile forces in open conflict. Squid ships are a favorite vessel for reavers, pirates who roam far from their base looking for easy plunder. Capable of laying in wait for other ships for a long time, the pirate squid ships carry a full crew of 35. They also carry a second mage in addition to the spelljamming mage or priest. This mage is usually less powerful than the primary spelljammer and is often placed at risk in boarding situations. Squid ships used for piracy usually use a grappling ram. The simple design and size of the squid ship makes it a common choice for human space navies, as both a defensive warning craft and an assault vehicle. For short distances and actions close to base, a Navy squid ship will overload, carry more than its standard complement of troops to repel attackers. Such ships will replace their medium ballistas with heavy versions before leaving base. The size of the squid ship and its capability to land on water makes it ideal for adventurous exploring brave new worlds and bringing back the more profitable parts of them. These versions often have additional armor or increased maneuverability, depending on the temperament of its users. Squid ships normally use major or minor spelljammer helms, and as such, carry at least one spellcaster as helmsman. Serial or pool helms are often used as reserve or replacement helms. Artificurnaces and, for the really desperate, gnomish furnaces, have been found on squid ships as well. The medium ballistas are replaced by heavy versions. These are often used when the ship can overload on manpower or in defensive situations. During the Great War between the Mind Flayers and the Gith, one of the Githyanki's greatest achievements was their discovery of the magic that Mind Flayers used to produce and propel the flying vessels that the Illithids used to travel between worlds. Now, the Githyanki scour the worlds of the material plane in their versions of those craft. Their astral ships are ideal for carrying troops and the spoils of their raids. Their wizards' divination magic seeks out great treasures. Under the guidance of Vlaakith, the supreme leaders organize raiding parties and dispatch them to return with the spoils of war. The Githyanki skyships attack from above in the dead of night, gaining an instant advantage since communities on the surface rarely offer strong defenses against attacks from the air. Red dragons ridden by knights accompany the vessels, serving as outriders and shock troops to pave the way for the Githyanki warriors to descend en masse. In battle, the Githyanki use mobile tactics combining psionics and magic to devastate their foes. They hit hard, setting buildings aflame and killing all in their path, to foster a panic among their victims that cripples any hope of an organized defense. Because the Githyanki strike to plunder rather than conquer, raiders linger over their target for no more than a few hours. By daybreak, the attackers are gone, purposely leaving behind enough survivors to rebuild the ruined community, so that the Githyanki might visit the place years or decades later and lay it low all over again. To enable them to traverse the skies and travel between planes, each Githyanki ship is powered by a helm, a magical device in the form of a throne-like chair that converts psychic energy into motive force. A Gish, a Githyanki who excels as both a warrior and a spellcaster, most commonly occupies the helm. A Gish uses its combination of abilities to pilot the ship and also take part in the inevitable battle that awaits the vessel at the end of its voyage. The rest of a ship's crew is made up of warriors who manage the craft's weapons and serve as lookouts. An astral skiff is operated by a crew of 3 and carries up to 12 passengers. The Githyanki employ this small vessel, 30 feet long and 10 feet wide, for patrols in the astral plane and for quick raids in pursuit of specific objects on the material plane. A skiff has a top speed of 15 miles per hour. It lacks weapons aside from those carried by its passengers and has a limited amount of storage space. The Astral Brig is the standard Githyanki military vessel. It requires a crew of 5 and can transport up to 60 passengers. A brig is 90 feet long and 30 feet wide, with 2 levels below decks for quarters and storage space. It is equipped with 2 ballistae, each one operated by a pair of crew members, and has a top speed of 12 miles per hour. The largest of the Githyanki ships, the Planar Raider, serves as a mobile headquarters during a major attack by the Githyanki's enemies. It needs a crew of 10 and can carry more than 100 passengers. A Planar Raider can travel up to 12 miles per hour. It is 40 feet wide and 120 feet long, with 2 levels below decks, and is equipped with 3 ballistae and a catapult. The Githyanki store and maintain their vessels at docks and outcrops that adjoin the military districts. Those who are assigned to ship maintenance enjoy a high status and are allowed to consider their work as part of their military service. Githyanki warriors provide labor as needed. The Githyanki fleet forms in silence, void cruisers and war hulls locked into perfect order as spelljamming helms flare and the astral opens before them. However alert we are, antiquity remains an unknown, unanticipated galaxy. The Kithrak lets the word settle, then speaks the truth that follows. We are Githyanki. We move mountains. We snuff out stars. We shake the plains.